Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Zach with GDC LLC, and this is going to be episode 2 of our business management program and just an overall rundown of how I run my business, and potentially you can take some pointers from this and learn to run your business or your future business better based on the things that we talk about in this series. So in the first episode, I just kind of laid down the groundwork for different things that you need to take into account when you're running a business, with setting up your entities, your scheduling, your budgeting, and the ways for your customer service and acquiring clientele and having future clientele. But in this video, I want to start getting into each item of that list and breaking them down even further to where you can potentially learn something from this and implement it into your business or your future business. So in this video, I'm going to talk about scheduling. Scheduling can be very simple at some times, depending on your business structure. If you're just doing $50,000 jobs and you're only one person, and let's say you're just like a handyman to doer type person and you're just doing one job consecutively, it's probably not going to be that difficult for you. But I'd also like to go into deep detail on this because there's a lot of people out there probably who are doing multiple jobs at once, are wanting to scale their business up and have multiple employees and maybe even different project managers and a lot of things running at once. And if you don't have your schedule honed in, if you want to start scaling up, it's going to just totally decimate your business because you're going to constantly be on the hamster wheel. You're going to be chasing stuff down. Clients are going to start looking at you crooked because you're just totally unorganized. And the first way to get organized is to really just know your schedule and what to do. So the first thing that I want to hit with schedule is talking about budget. So if you want to initially create your schedule, it's all going to be built around your budget. So if you got your different line items, like you got your demo, your framing, your plumbing, electrical, all these different items, you're going to need to take the dollar amounts of everything that you have, figure out man hours, and break those man hours into days of work, and then you can implement those days or input those days into your schedule. And there's a lot of different softwares or apps out there where that you can utilize, just like a calendar or Gantt charts and stuff like that. I highly recommend people go and invest into some sort of app or a program that offers like a Gantt chart style scheduling system, because excuse me, it just breaks everything down so much more simply. You'll be able to see lines on an actual chart, and you'll see where they overlap and what might conflict with other things, or where you can put things over top of each other where two different items can be happening at the same time. Whereas on a calendar, it's a little bit harder to see because you're just filling in a day on that calendar, and you can have it stretch across different calendar days. It's really all up to preference. I would just highly recommend looking at different programs that offer a Gantt chart, G-A-N-T, and you'll see what I'm talking about, and it'll really be able to maximize what you're able to do with your business. And so a lot of the times, if you have in-house labor, let's say it be carpentry or demolition work or putting accessories or something in somebody's house, if you're doing these in your business with employees or yourself, you can actually break that down into man hours and thus turn it into days. So if you're doing a smaller job and you're doing demo, it's going to take you 4 days to demo a place. You already know, okay, 4-day period, I'm going to put that in my chart when you start the job, because it's one of the first things you're going to be doing, and you can have it 4 days. You can have it Monday through Thursday demo. And what that will do is it will give you a real stat on that chart where you know these days I'm going to have to be doing demo on this project. So, thus knowing that, what can't I do? Well, I can't do plumbing. I can't do electrical. So obviously those things are going to be pushed further on your schedule. And if you are able to really get to know your numbers in your business, and you should be budgeting it this way anyways. When you're selling the job, if you're doing work in-house, you should be budgeting it that way anyways. How many man hours is it going to take for me to do said project? And this kind of dives a little bit deeper too, is man hours does not particularly correlate to actual days of work. So it could take you, let's say, 40 man hours to do something, but if you have 2 guys doing it and they're working, let's just say they're working 10-hour days, that's only 2 days, where if you only have 1 person doing it, that's 4 days. So right there you can see how you have to know where your manpower is and who's available and where you're going to be putting on what project you're going to be putting these people on. And so these Gantt charts and this scheduling system that you will create will give you a real idea of, you'll build the schedule and you'll be manipulating it ongoing, especially if you're forecasting a schedule down the road for projects that are coming months down the road. You'll have created this whole schedule, and who knows, you're coming a month, maybe a couple weeks before the project starts, and you're like, okay, this is my manpower. These are the people that are actually going to be available, so we can shorten this, we have to lengthen this, whatever we have to do. So I would say the first thing is to know your budget and be able to break down your actual man hours into some sort of schedule with days. And it doesn't have to be concrete at this point if you're not starting the job yet, but at least get an idea of what's going to happen. And then you can put your other MVPs in place, like your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. You can talk to your subcontractors, and so this is a really important part of building a project, is not only to get accurate budget from these people. Let's just use a plumber for an example. You don't want to just ask them like, hey, how much is it going to cost for you to do this, this, and this? You're going to want to ask them like, well, this is the scope of work for the project. What do you think is going to take you to do this? It's going to be 3 days, 2 days, 2 weeks. And they should know their numbers. The people that you're working with hopefully know their numbers, so that you can actually input that information into your schedule. So let's say the plumber is going to be coming in and doing their rough plumbing, and they say it's going to take them 3 days to do it. Well, you input that into the Gantt chart, and you put 3 days as the plumbing, and then you know, okay, this has to get done, demo has to get done before plumbing. Plumbing has to get done before this, or mechanical, if you have mechanical, and your business structure can figure out the way that you like to line up your subcontractors, but typically you'd want your mechanicals to come in first, then your plumbers, and then your electricians, because as you go down that line, each one of those subs become easier and easier to move their either vents or wiring into easier spots, where a mechanical ductwork kind of has some variability, especially like in an unfinished basement or something. But once you get into wall cavities, they need to take up the whole cavity, and you don't want to have supply lines or anything in there. So you typically start with your mechanicals. So track down your subcontractors, get them to really give you actual numbers on how much labor time it's going to take to do something, and then you can input that into your schedule. And you'll start building this whole schedule, and it will go through the days. It will start branching out to maybe months, depending on how big the project is, or even years, depending on how big the project is. And same with them is, once the time comes closer, you can ask them again, because then they'll have a better idea. Let's say you're 1 month out from having them start their work. You can be like, hey, we want you to start 1 month from now. How much manpower are you going to bring? How long do you think it's going to take you? And initially they might have said it was going to take 3 days, but now they might change that and say, you know what, we have these other jobs going on right now, it's just lining up bad. I'm only going to be able to provide you 1 plumber. It's actually going to take him 6 days to do the work. And that's super valuable to you, because then you can go into your schedule and manipulate your schedule, because it's going to affect everything down that line, from your other subcontractors that are going to be coming in, your deliveries, the milestones that you're trying to reach. And it might open up a conversation for you to have with your plumber and say, hey, I really need you to prioritize this project for me. I have a lot of things coming down the pipeline, and I just need you to figure out a better way to provide me manpower. So I would say get that budget honed in, and then move into bringing your man hours into the schedule, creating days, forecasting that out onto a whole project's basis with every single thing that you can think of. All your in-house labor hours, all your subcontractors, and then completion dates and milestones that you're trying to reach. And you should have a pretty good picture of what your project's going to be then. It'll branch out to whatever, 3 months, 4 months, 1 year, and then you can bring that to the client and give them a reality of like, okay, this is actually what it's going to take. You might have told them in the beginning when you sold the project it's going to be a 6-month job, and then now your schedule's figured out and you can say, okay, we did all the nitty gritty and we figured out where we can fit everyone in and the different lead times on things, and it's actually going to be 8 months. And that might be an issue or not, depending on what roadblocks there are for those clients. They might want something done by Christmas. Let's use that as an example. And now you're branching into Christmas. So maybe you're going to have to go back into the schedule and just fix everything, change things, maybe switch out a subcontractor that can give you more labor hours than what they were expecting. Sometimes that has to happen, especially if you're working with smaller subcontractors who only have a couple guys. You'll have to sometimes maybe switch them out, just depending on the time of year, or they just lost an employee or something like that. And you'll say, hey, I'll catch you on the next project, but for this one I just really need a lot more manpower, so I'm going to go with somebody else. And your client's going to appreciate that, and then also your subcontractor will appreciate that because you're not harassing them during their work and saying, hey, hurry up, I need you to meet my schedule. It's better to just be upfront and honest with people and just tell them, hey, it's just not working out for this project. Like, we'll catch you on the next one. So the next thing that I want to hint on is to create milestones. And so a milestone would be getting to plaster, let's say, or drywall, depending on where you are in the country. Let's say you have that milestone of reaching plaster, having plaster done. And a lot of people say that milestone is going from the rough phase of the project to the finish phase of the project. And so if you have that hard deadline of where you want that day to be, then everything before it, you've got to confine to that milestone. So let's say 2 months into the project is, boom, I want to be at plaster. And so everything that's before those 2 months, if you might have to condense them in some way. And there is ways to do that. So not only like what I've spoken about, reaching out to your subs and seeing if they can give you more manpower, but there's also ways of overlapping people too. So you don't only have to have like demo, then mechanical, then plumbing, then electrical. Like they can, depending on the project, like let's say you're remodeling an entire house, you can have them work over top of each other and it won't be a big issue. And sometimes you want them to, because the mechanical contractor and the plumbing contractor may have to work together in some way to where let's say the mechanical system needs some form of plumbing in it, and they need them to run their supply lines or whatever, their drain lines in a certain area, and they need to work together to figure out like, how are we going to make this happen? Like, hey, I'll move my trunk over here if you can put your vent over here, and things like that. So instead of having block, 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 you can start to scrunch them together and have them overlapping each other. And that's a really good way to bring that schedule in closer. But it's also like a double-edged sword there too, because sometimes you're trying to scrunch them in, and let's say the mechanical contractor is working, that has some employees that just work a little bit slower than other people that they may have, and then the plumber's just absolutely flying through their work. Well, then it's going to become an issue because the plumber's like, I'm already here, I don't want to have to leave to go do a different job. I just want to stay here and finish this job, but I can't finish the job because the mechanical contractor is dragging their feet. And so it becomes this hamster wheel of sorts of where it's like, okay, like how can we overlap them, but don't overlap them too much, because then it's going to become a different issue, and it might actually have slowed the whole project down, because now the person has to go start another job. They have to finish that job before they come back and finish their work, because you weren't properly planning the project. And if you want to be a general contractor, which a lot of this content that I'm creating is going to be centered around, as a general contractor, you're the one that's responsible for this. You're the one that's overseeing the entire project. And if you're not creating a schedule that works for everybody, they're going to point the finger at you. It's not their problem. You're supposed to be the one that's actually doing this properly. And then in turn, the client's going to point their finger at you and say, what's going on here? Like, why is the process going so slow? Why are people not getting work done? Why did somebody show up one day and now they're not back for another week? It just starts to raise all these red flags that you do not want. And so that's why it's super important, months in advance, if you possibly can, is to create this schedule. Get it in a place that you're comfortable with, where you're like, okay, this all looks good, and then go back to your subcontractors, maybe do more walkthroughs and have them see, like, okay, yeah, your schedule that you created actually does work. Like, we can make this work and everyone will be happy. And that does sometimes take you having to go back to a client's place and looking at stuff, or doing some surgical demo and opening up a spot and be like, hey, I really need to know this information. Like, can we open up this ceiling, like a hole in the ceiling, and just make sure that there's not something in my way here, because what I'm about to get into next can change things dramatically. And so you got your schedule built, all your subcontractors are happy, they know your limitations, you know their limitations, and you're ready to start the project. Everything's going smooth, and then all of a sudden you start the project, and on demo day you start ripping out ceilings and ripping out walls, and oh boy, this framing is not supported properly. This window has rot all underneath it. I need to fix all the rot. Well, that changes a lot of things, because now you're going to have to, on the financial side of things, put in a change order to your client if it wasn't involved in the budget in the first place. And that takes time. You got to create that. It's like creating a whole new budget. You got to create a whole little micro budget. The client has to approve it. You have to talk to your subcontractors and make sure that if they're involved in that at all, that change order, that they update their paperwork and their pricing, and then it switches the schedule, the Gantt chart. And so let's say you start demo, you open up a bunch of stuff, there's a lot more demo that needs to happen. Okay, well, it pushed mechanical a little bit, and then mechanical actually extended for 1 or 2 more days, because now they have to reroute something, they have to wait for you to frame something, and it can snowball from there. And setting up real expectations for your clients in the beginning, before you even start the project, is just absolutely necessary. You just have to let them know that things are going to happen. I don't have x-ray vision. I can't see everything that's behind your walls. And this is our schedule. We built everything, and in a perfect world, this is going to work perfectly, but we can run into an issue. And so let's say you ran into that issue, changed your schedule, you had to manipulate it, now it's dragging out, now it's infringing on your milestone of the plaster. So you still have that day where it's like, I need to get this plaster done because all the finish work afterward needs to finish by this day. And so sometimes it's just inevitable. You have to push that day. You wanted the plaster done on that day, it's going to have to get pushed, and you're going to have to let everyone around you know that this is a reality, this is what's happening. And a lot of the times you can't even overlook things that you find, because the town, the inspectors, or the city that you're working in won't let you. You can't close up something that's rotting away. If something isn't framed properly or supported properly, you can't close up the walls until it's fixed. And so I think a lot of people, especially if you are creating a client base that's good, like people that understand and have money and want to do this project, they understand that this stuff's going to happen. It's outside of your power to control that. You're at the mercy of the local agencies or government at this point, and so there's nothing. Your hands are tied. And if you're finding the right clientele, then they should be totally understanding of that. And so change orders are a huge thing that change your schedule. And so something that people don't involve a lot of the time in their change orders, like let's say you have to reframe a header over a doorway because it's not properly supported or it's not a thick enough lumber or something. Well, what a lot of people will do will just say, all right, it's going to cost us this much money to replace this header for you. As long as you sign this change order, we'll get this work done. We'll wrap it into our framing. But they never set an expectation with the client about their framing or their schedule, about how, well, we just added a whole nother day because now we have to reframe this whole thing and added a day. And if you don't let people know that, then they're going to be like, well, why is framing dragging along? Why is it taking so long to do framing? Well, we just had this added work. And so you need to let everybody know, and everybody tied into this schedule know that, hey, this is getting prolonged. This is going to change the days. Down the whole road of the chart is going to change those expected milestones because now we're pushing that chart. And it doesn't always work in that direction where, like, if you add a day doing framing, it ruins the whole schedule down the road. No, you can, like we talked about earlier, have the overlap. Like, okay, well, let's finish all the other framing that we have to do, and then while some of the mechanical or plumbing or electrical guys are here, let's reframe this doorway, because let's say they don't have to run anything through that spot. So you can have overlap. Then you're on site, you're doing the work, your subcontractors are doing their work, and the job's still moving forward. So it's not always like when you get a change order, it's just going to ruin your schedule. That's definitely, sometimes it does, but a lot of the times you can still do like a workaround and figure out a good way to manage that and not actually have it affect the schedule. But I would say that it's very important to at least set the expectation with your client and say, hey, we have this change order, that change order, and that change order. These all equate to this many days. And so if at the end of the project it is this many days pushed, this is the reason why. It's because we had to add all this extra work that was not in the initial budget for this project. And so that's just a given with this type of work. That's just, you got to set that expectation in the beginning is all I'm trying to say. So you've started the demo. Your subcontractors are in. You might have got a change order or something along the way. It manipulated the schedule a little bit, and you're getting close to that plaster day, that milestone that you have. Well, something that you should be doing as all this is going is updating your schedule with actuals. So let's say you had 4 days of demo, and your guys, like I talked about earlier, you had it set for only one guy doing demo for 4 days. Well, it just so happened that you were able to get an extra guy. Like somebody finished a job early and you brought them in and it only took you 2 days to do demo. Well, if you don't change your schedule because of that, then all the information that you have isn't even accurate. So as you're going through the project, it's super important for you to go back and manipulate your schedule to what actually happened. So demo, instead of the 4 days you had set on it for the schedule, it's down to 2. Well, what happened with that? Because I'm sure something happened with that where you bumped your mechanical contractor back a couple days. Well, you got to move that on the schedule. And then let's just say everything is going great in a perfect world, and they just had a bunch of people that were open and they banged it out in 3 days, and boom, it changes the schedule. And so you have to be going back and switching your actual numbers for the work that you're performing, because not only will it, while you're doing this project, will it be super informative for you, but also after you've closed out this project and moved on to another one, and maybe you're trying to sell another job to somebody that is very similar to the one that we're talking about here, well, you can go back into your software or program or whatever you have and look at it and be like, oh, this is actually what happened throughout this whole project. And then hopefully you have some sort of daily log or pictures or something tracking what's actually happening deeper on a day-to-day basis. But at least looking at that schedule, you can be like, well, hey, we were able to like really tighten this schedule together, or we did not expect this, but it just lengthened the schedule dramatically. Well, now you can account for that in the next job that you sell. So updating the actuals of your schedule is just super important for your information moving forward, because we're trying to create businesses, right, people? We're not just trying to be a DIYer or handyman and doing one job after another. We're trying to build these businesses and have employees and provide for families and create great futures for your whole team and have a company that you can stand behind and be proud of. Well, if you want to be that type of person, you got to get on top of these things. And that's why I wanted to dive really deep into schedule, because it's so important to have your schedule figured out. If you don't have that figured out, your projects are not going to be, I wouldn't say they're not going to be successful, but they're not going to be as successful as you want to be. You're going to get to the end of that project and be like, wow, I really wish like I planned that better, or I tracked it better, or I didn't have to always go back to the client and tell them this and tell them that and be like, this person didn't show up that day, this person didn't come here. If you have everything together and you have great communication between all your team, your contractors, everything, it's gonna be so much better. There's gonna be accountability, there's gonna be responsibility, and then your client's gonna see that. Because ultimately they're gonna hold you responsible for the entire project. They're giving you, like I talked about in my first video, a big chunk of money, and you're the one who has the responsibility of dispersing that money and making the project a success. So if everybody's showing up on time, everything's happening perfectly, and even if things aren't happening perfectly, if you're manipulating it, you're setting those expectations, at the end of the project, the client that you're working for is going to be so much happier because you were communicating with them the entire time. You let them know of the changes. You updated the schedule that hopefully they have access to. That's another thing, is giving the client access to your schedule is a really good thing to do, because then they can hold you accountable and you can let them see it and not have to always contact them. Maybe just send them a message like, hey, have you checked the schedule in a while? Like, there has been some changes, like you might want to look at it. And they appreciate that a lot, let me tell you. So on the schedule, there's a lot of things that are pretty straightforward. It's like obviously your labor hours, your subcontractors, your milestones. But another thing that I really would recommend you all to implement into your schedule is the nitty-gritty stuff, like deliveries. Like, let's say your appliances are getting delivered on a certain day. Like, put that in somewhere into your schedule. Even if it's not accurate, if it's 3 months down the road, like pick a day and be like, all right, this Monday is going to be the appliance delivery day. And that might change. You don't have to set that in stone. None of this stuff is set in stone. But even things like, let's say you have tile on this job and your client is super particular about the tile and they want to lay it out and they want to lay it out in a certain way. Well, schedule it. Put it on the schedule and figure out a day for that. So you have plaster done, tiles coming in next, and your tile delivery was the week before. You checked all the tile, it is all correct and good. Well, the next week, like, schedule a day. Be like, all right, my tile guy's going to come in and waterproof the whole place. While he's waterproofing the place, like, let's take this opportunity to just pull out all the tiles out of the boxes and let's do like a little mock-up or a layout of what's happening. And so if you have that scheduled, not only, like I said, the client can see that, they can schedule it on their day, because I'm sure the clients that you're working for or trying to work for are busy people too. They're the ones paying you boatloads of money to do a project. Well, they got to get those boatloads of money from somewhere. Their job, that's probably very demanding, and their schedule is very rigorous as well. So if months in advance, you can at least have a tentative, penciled in tile layout day, they can at least be like, all right, in May, second week of May, we're going to be doing somewhere around there a tile layout. I just need to plan for that. Maybe they have a family vacation or whatever. It's just giving people the opportunity to actually plan their lives around this project, because It's a big undertaking for anybody, and the schedule will just let them build around it. Be like, okay, I can't take a vacation these 2 weeks because my contractor needs me to make these decisions or pick these things or have something put here or put there for me or for him. And being able to just see it on the schedule is super important. And so anything like that though, like any like little like lighting layouts, tile layouts, appliance deliveries, any other deliveries like tile deliveries, owners meetings, like have that on the schedule. If it's like every Monday at 9 o'clock, put that on the schedule, owner meeting. And so everyone can know, like, okay, even the subcontractors can know, like, hey, on Monday at 9 o'clock, every Monday at 9 o'clock, they're going to be in here, they're going to be walking around and discussing the project. Maybe I should plan accordingly. I can do something in the basement, or I can do something that really isn't loud. And obviously that isn't always possible, because you're also pressuring your subcontractors to get their work done in a timely fashion, so they can't just halt for every little meeting, and you shouldn't expect them to. But being able to have that on the schedule, at least they can be aware of it. Like, okay, Monday at 9 o'clock, the owners are going to be here. Maybe I should look presentable, look good, try to make the project be super clean, the job site clean and swept. At least they can know that. And that makes you want to work with them more often if they're capable of taking the time to understand that. Like, hey, at Mondays at 9 o'clock, I should, if it's me doing the work, electrical, whatever, like, let's not have our wire all over the place. Let's not have just cardboard boxes everywhere. Like, let's keep it clean for this day and make it look good. And you're setting them up for that success. It's your responsibility to set them up for that success. That's all you're doing with building this schedule, is saying, hey, look at my schedule, take a notice of all these things that are happening and plan accordingly. And if they can do that, then good on you. You found a good subcontractor, and that's great. It's not easy to find. Okay, and then, so you've got all your in-house labor hours, your budget's honed in, you got your subcontractors built into it, you got your milestones built all along the way, you got all your deliveries and your layouts in there, all your owners meetings. Great, the project at that point is pretty much where you want it to be. I mean, that's a lot of the things you want built into it. And like I said, it's going to manipulate and change over time. But now I'd like to take a moment to actually go big picture. So let's say you're a general contractor who's running a couple jobs at once. So this schedule that you built is only one of your jobs that you're doing. You got 3, 4, 5 other jobs, 10 jobs at once happening. Well, what do you do in this case? And say you're sharing subcontractors on all of these jobs. Well, that's going to become a big issue here, because now not only are you having to overlap subcontractors and labor hours on just one job, but now it's overlapping on job to job to job. And this is where it goes super deep. And this is where you need to have some broader schedule of just your business. And so this is completely separate of just your projects. You have your project schedules, and then what I like to call it is a forecaster. And let's just use it as a 1-year forecaster. You forecast your business 1 year out, and on this forecaster, you have each one of your projects. So it goes by projects. And you need to break down in that forecaster, okay, I have at this time, at this project, I need 100 man hours this week. Well, us as a company, let's say we only have 200 man hours total. So that means you're only left with, let's say the week of March 20th, you have 100 man hours left over. So all your projects and the stages of where they are in those projects have to line up where they can keep running smoothly with only 100 man hours. And it can get super hard and confusing and difficult at this point, because because like we talked about earlier, the change orders change the schedule, your subcontractors change the schedule, deliveries change the schedule, the client changes the schedule, And so it's really hard to forecast it out perfectly. But if you can at least create it and have a plan to manipulate it as time goes on, to where like 1 month out, you can manipulate it and plan 1 month out or 2 months out, you should be able to work around that. And you can manipulate where you are in projects. So let's say here you're doing demo and you're putting all your man hour on that, and then it's moving into the MEPs. Well, this project can start right then. So your guys finished demo, they did their framing, and the MEPs are started here. Well, like boom, let's move them all to this next project, demo, framing, and then MEPs come in again. And then on this other project, you're more towards the end of the project and it's finishes. Let's bring the guys back in. We're going to do the trim work. We're going to put the accessories up. And it can get, like I said, super confusing at that point. But if you have no system in place, how are you ever going to like wade your way through that ocean? You're not going to be able to. There's eventually going to be a point where you're just so overwhelmed and you have people from 20 different directions asking you something and need you for something, and you're going to be totally lost. And you're going to have no support from your team because your team can't rely on you because you're not supporting them. And this is the way that you can support them, is create these systems of having a schedule for each project, having a forecasted schedule of your whole year, and be like, hey, you're going to be, and there might be issues, and I'm not saying there isn't going to be issues, that you might forecast 2 months out and be like, hey, we have a lot going on in July. It's summertime, we're trying to get a lot of work done, everybody wants their project done, but we just do not have the man hours for this. And if you've forecasted this out, you've built your schedules, well, that's great, because now you have 2 months and in this 2 month period, you can look at all your other managers in the office and say, hey, should we hire some more people? And that gives you a period to get them onboarded, give them a 90-day training period potentially, or have them in that training period at least and have them started to where they can do some of the easier work. And now you have more man hours. You went from 200 to you're up to 280 or whatever, or 240 if you only got brought on one guy. And then you can update that and say, okay, now we have 40, 80, 120 more hours to actually work with here, and we're going to be good. And then you can keep that ball rolling down the road. And like I keep saying, there is going to be issues down the road. This isn't a perfect world, but that's what we're trying to strive to, is perfection with this. And the schedule is paramount to that, is you have to know where your guys are going to be, what's going on your projects that your business is liable for, and where is its milestones, where's its completion dates, and even before that, pre-construction, your sales, have schedules on them. When are we selling these jobs? When do we need to have the pre-construction done by so that we can move into actually producing the project? When is the closeouts, the warranty work? How long of a warranty period do we hold? And when is warranty work going to fit into the schedule? Oh, hey, we have an opening in the third week of July. Like, let's go over to Susie's house and let's fix that warranty item that happened. It's some cracking plaster or paint or trim moved or whatever it is. So being able to forecast out is big picture stuff. It's a lot to think about, but my hopes with this series is to just lay the groundwork for you guys. Open up discussion. I'd love to have discussion about this stuff because I don't know everything. I just know some stuff. And move into the ability to actually show stuff on the computer. I know, unfortunately, this is not probably the best studio you've ever seen. It's just happening off of a phone at this point, but I would love to get to the point where we create a group of people and we can talk about these things and we can get better and we can figure out systems and softwares and programs that work better for contractors, because business is hard enough. It's extremely difficult to be a contractor, and creating a group of like-minded people, of men and women who want to do good in this field, is one great way to just find success for all of us and give clients successful projects, because ultimately people are paying us for a service and we want to be able to provide it the best possible way. So I would like to ask all of you to please like the video, share it with any other of your friends in this industry. That'd be super helpful. subscribe to the channel, please. It's been a slow start here, but I do want to create more content like this, and I do want to move on to live streaming and maybe having panels of people on where we can discuss the construction industry and the management of the construction industry and the changing of the construction industry. So, like I said, I hope you got something valuable here. If you did, please hit the like button and share this and subscribe. And we'll move on to episode 3 coming up here shortly. And it's going to be jam-packed with a bunch more valuable information. Catch you on the next one.